Gentlemen, life is good, because as I am sat here listening to Lovely Day by Bill Withers on repeat, Adesanya is no longer the middleweight champion. We have a new middleweight champion of the world, Alex Periera. What a fight card 281 was, ladies and gentlemen. I thoroughly enjoyed it. We're going to be breaking it down from early prelims all the way to the main event, and that's where we're going to start. Early prelims, Carlos Ulberg knocking out Nikolai Namaga. I can't even say these names, but I'm so happy. But Carlos Ulberg, first round KO, started up a bit slow, but that one little punch just took him straight out. Carlos Ulberg looking impressive. He looks like he could be a future contender at light heavyweight. I certainly am looking forward to his rise. I won't be sleeping on him again. I won't be sleeping on another light heavyweight up on the card. But moving on then, we have Montel Jackson defeating Julio Arce. Unanimous decision, 230-27 and 129-28. I had it 29-28. I don't agree with 30-27 personally, but it was a decent little scrap. It wasn't... The first couple of fights on this card actually follow a pattern. And to be fair, we had 3 decisions, but they all follow a bit of a pattern until the main card, or just before the main card actually, which we'll get to in a little bit. But then moving on, we had Michael Trizano versus Choi Sing-Hu. What a fight this was. This was incredible. Early on, we seen a double knockdown from both men. I was jumping up and down. Both men looked as if they had a chance of knocking each other out, but ultimately Michael Trizano knocks him out just in the last 10 seconds of the round, possibly keeping his UFC contract. You know, he won tough, 27, Team Stipe. Stipe Miocic is my man. And that was an incredible scrap. I said they both looked like knocking each other out. Choi Sing-Wu didn't really look as if he did a lot of damage. He did clip Trinzano at one point. Obviously, there was a double knockdown. He did clip Trinzano at one point, but he seemed to phase it off. But then moving on, we had Caroline. I had her name nailed earlier. Now I can't remember it. Versus Gomez Juarez, or I've done that horribly. Gomez Juarez. Now this one, Montreal Screwjob 2.0, if you know what I'm referring to, inside of MSG. So I had the fight. I actually did have the fight for Carolina, 29-28. But I found it so weird because obviously we were about to get the results right out, and then they went in, took Buffer's scorecard, changed everything, and I was like, what's going on here? But who knows who was winning. I had Carolina winning 29-28, but I could have made the argument for Gomez Juarez as well. But it is what it is. Moving on, finishing off the early prelims, Matt Frevola knocking out Otman Azaya, or Azat. You know I'm awful with these names, but I'm so happy right now. Matt Frevola knocking him out in the first round. This was brutal. This was a brutal knockout. Hit him on the temple twice on the way down. And I had a first round knockout, but I didn't have it for Frevola. But I said Frevola was a good bet. He was a dangerous man. And he proved that. Otman, I think the ring rust did affect him because he didn't look as what we'd seen. He looked a bit slower. He looked a bit more, out of there. He looked a bit slow. He didn't really know. He couldn't really get anything going, whereas Frevola, sharp as ever, calling out Paddy Pimblett in his post-fight interview. I want to see Steamroller Frevola take on Paddy Pimblett. If Paddy Pimblett beats Jared Gordon next month, I think that would be a decent little scrap. But we'll get to my fantasy bookings in another video. Moving on to the preliminary card. Finish off on the early prelims. This is the main prelims now. Starting off with Andre Petrosky defeating Wellington Turman. I made the same mistake as Buffer there when I called him Turner. Wellington Turman, 30-27, 30-27 and 29-28. I agree with the 29-28. But this was a scrap and a half. Andre Petrosky showing great grappling. And I don't want to spoil too much of my fantasy booking as well, but I did say I want to see this man either take on GM3 or I want to see him take on Bo Nickel. But I don't want to see him take on Bo Nickel now. I want to see him take on Bo Nickel in the future when him and Bo Nickel are both in the rankings. I know Bo Nickel is going to get to the rankings, and I definitely think Andre Petrosky will be there. But I was also saying you can't justify giving Andre Petrosky a ranked fight before you give Brian Battle a ranked fight, in my opinion. But Andre Petroski looks sharp, great grappling, especially in that third round when we all thought he gassed. It was great grappling all over, and nullifying the jiu-jitsu of Wellington Turman. That was amazing. Moving on then, we see Erin Blanchfield defeating Molly McCann, and people were calling me casual because I said Erin Blanchfield was going to... I didn't have it ending the way it did in the first round by submission, but people were calling me casual because I said Erin Blanchfield is going to dominate Molly McCann 30-27, maybe 30-28, and she dominated it. People are sleeping on Erin Blanchfield. 23, doing stuff like that. She's dangerous. Please stop sleeping on Erin Blanchfield. I love Molly McCann, but do not sleep on Blanchfield. She is dangerous. I think if Strawweight's a bit funny because obviously we'll get into Zhang Welli winning the title on the main card, but you know, we've seen Zhang Welli lose to someone like Rose Namajunas, but I think Erin Blanchfield, when she gets her hands on that strawweight title, I think she's going to be champ for a while. Or flyweight. I've been calling it strawweight, flyweight. My apologies. When she gets her hand... Oh, wait, so hang on. Have I been... No, so strawweight... No, so they are flyweight. I've messed myself up there. Okay, we'll ignore what I said. But I definitely think Blanchfield is a proper contender for the title. But absolutely dominating Molly McCann. At one point, I think it was 107 strikes in total to 7. There was one point where she had 63 strikes. Molly McCann had nothing, just absolute domination. Moving on, this one upset me. This one made me sad. Catchweight bout because Ryan Spann failed to make weight. But, man, we need to talk about Dominic Reyes. His chin is worse than his hairline at this point. And what happened to the killer that beat, I repeat, beat John Jones? Where has he gone? It's upsetting because I was underestimating Ryan Spann. I was like, Dominic Reyes has got this. Ryan Spann is a little bit overrated. And he went out there and fucking dominated Dominic Reyes. Where is the chin of Dominic Reyes? Where's it gone? Please answer me that. And Dominic Reyes, he needed a win. Either he doesn't fight in the rankings anymore, or he's getting dropped by the UFC. And it pains me to say, but he's been knocked out in 3 of his last 4. And then, moving on, we got Renato Moicano. And he had an interesting post-fight interview when he choked out Brad Riddell in the first round. I can't remember if I predicted first or second round submission, but I said Brad Riddell was going to sleep, and he didn't go to sleep. He did tap, but, you know, Moicano looked good in the striking as well. And ultimately, Brad Riddell hasn't been looking good recently. You know, he was doing well in the UFC and then he lost to Fiziev, or Fiziev, whatever you want to call him. But don't get me wrong, he's a good fighter. And then he lost to Jalen Turner, who's also, you know, he's on the come up. And now Moicano, I think Riddell needs to just fight outside the rankings, which, I mean, he was with Moicano, but Moicano, we know him as a killer from featherweight. I almost said flyweight then. It's insane. You know, but that was a cold image when Moicano was choking on Riddell and Riddell was tapping, blood trickling out the nose of Moicano. Or the cut, I think, might have been on the cheek or the eye. Might have even been the nose, though. I can't really remember. But it was trickling onto the floor as Brad Riddell was tapping. Moving on to the main card, Dan Hooker beats Claudio Puelles by second round body knockout, body kick TKO. This is a weird fight, man. Dan Hooker, I mean, the good Hooker's back. I'd pay for this Hooker. You know, it was weird because in the first round, even though Dan Hooker won it, Puelles was attempting a heel hook. It reminded me a lot of Paul Craig against Oezdemir. And he had it on for a while, but he could never really lock it up. Dan Hooker was... And then it became Oezdemir Craig 2, basically, where Puelles, all he was doing was he kept on going for the heel hook, the leg lock, grappling, and every time he'd fail, Dan Hooker would stand up and say, "No, come on, let's stand and bang." And that's what we got. Ultimately, second round TKO. The Hangman is back. Puelles looked odd. He looked off. He didn't look like he wanted to be there. And at first I thought, early stoppage, is he just playing it off? But no, he was really getting hurt by those body kicks. But it's kicks. But it's great to see the Hangman back. Looking forward to his next fight. We've got a sound on next. Chris Gutierrez defeating Frankie Edgar by a brutal knockout knee in the first round. That is not how I want to see Edgar go out, man. You know, he has retired. He did say he was going to retire, but that is not how I wanted to see him go out in his last fight. It hurt. See it? I just remember I was talking about Valentina Shevchenko doing motion capture for what I think is UFC 5. And then Edgar just went to the floor and I was like, I was really upset. It was brutal. Like, I knew Frankie Edgar was probably going to get knocked out, but I didn't want to believe it. And it started off well. He was being competitive. He took a spinning back fist clean. And I was like, come on, Edgar. His heart is in this. And then he ate that knee, went to the floor in front of his family as well. It's brutal. But, you know, Edgar's done the right thing by retiring. Gutierrez is probably going to get into the rankings. We'll get a top 15 fighter. Moving on then, what a scrap we had. Dustin Poirier defeating Michael Chandler by, of all things, a rear naked choke in the third round. I love this fight. I was bouncing up and down with excitement. The first round looked like it was going Michael Chandler's way. Bit of a close one. And even Dustin Poirier was like, I was scared. He was hurting me. And right at the end, I can't remember if Michael Chandler got dropped or if he just really felt it, but he got hit by something big, went back. I think he did get dropped. Dustin Poirier was looking to finish. And then second round, or it was either at the end of the first round when he got dropped, or the second round before the grappling started. But Michael Chandler had his nose broken. Second round, completely dominated Dustin Poirier. 10-8. Brutal grappling. Blood pouring all over. And I was like, third round, here we go. And Michael Chandler, he loves to entertain the fans. I know it's a bit of a joke saying he's got negative IQ when he fights, but with a broken nose, I mean, that was a Dustin Poirier covered in blood, almost getting choked out. And there was accusations in the second round of a fish hook. They replayed it. I couldn't see it. But we need to talk about this, before moving on to the third round. Poirier was almost choked out. Poirier's covered in Michael Chandler's blood. Michael Chandler's nose is broken. Blood gushing onto the canvas. Such a cold image. But anyway, obviously we get to the third round. Both men are scrapping, throwing hands. Both men looking wobbled. And then Michael Chandler shoots a big takedown. Literally picks him up. Slams him down. Gets given up the back. Straight away, Poirier capitalises, like I said, with all things a rear naked choke. And Michael Chandler taps straight away. Great fight. People are going to say Michael Chandler's overrated, but personally I don't think so. You know, he's fought only killers because Dan Hooker was obviously a killer because he was just coming off the Dustin Poirier fight. I think Michael Chandler and Dustin Poirier, I wouldn't mind seeing them running back. I wouldn't mind seeing any of Michael Chandler's fights being run back. And, man, it's a shame one of them had to lose. This card was excellent. I'm struggling for words, struggling to contain my excitement. But moving on then, we got the co-main event. Zhang Welli defeating Carla Ezparza with another rear naked choke. Let me count this up quickly. We've seen 1, 2, 3. Oh, we only seen 3 rear naked chokes out of 14. But Zhang Welli dominating Carla Ezparza. Sprawling and lots of grappling. I think Carla Ezparza got on top once. But like I said, it was going to be Carla Esparza's funeral. Zhang Welli gave her a funeral. What can I say? Esparza's going to be back, fighting. I thought she was going to retire. She didn't. But Zhang Welli's, let me get it right this time, strawweight champ, not flyweight. We all expected it. There's not a lot to say about this fight apart from Zhang Welli outclassed Carla Esparza. I don't know who she can defend her title against. I suppose the obvious one is Rose Namajunas, but Rose Namajunas has beat her twice now, and she's coming off that poor title loss. So we'll have to take a look at strawweight rankings, but I'd rather see a fresh matchup for Zhang Welli. I don't know who you give Carla Esparza to because I don't really want to see a rematch of Rose. But, Zhang Weili's, I really don't know what to say about this fight because it was just dominance from Zhang Welli, apart from one little moment that looked like, and even then Carla Esparza was only on top for 1 second. It was a brutal choke. And then we move on. to the main event where Adesanya was slain. You know, Adesanya is probably going to use the excuse that he used in the first 2 fights, which, don't get me wrong, is completely valid. So it's not really an excuse. It's more of a fair point. It's completely valid. He should have won the first fight. He was winning the second fight, and he was winning this fight, apart from the second round. But ultimately, Adesanya is the one that was left frozen like Elsa. He was put on skates, and he was left frozen like Elsa. You know, the first round ended. I had Alex winning it, and it ended in a weird way where he got rocked a bit, and then after the buzzer, Adesanya hit him with a left hook that definitely wobbled him. But I don't know if you can take that into account because obviously it was after the bell. If not, I'd give that first round to Periera. If not, you give it to Adesanya. But obviously the judges gave it to Adesanya. Second round was clearly Pereira's. Lots of pressure, lots of aggression. And then the third round was a 10-8 for Adesanya. I had a 10-9, but 10-8, fair enough. You can give it that argument. But round 4 was Adesanya's again. And then they told him round 5. It reminded me, it's ironic because the 2 Nigerian champs have been slain the same way. Winning a fight, and I mean, I predicted both of them. I'm happy to admit that I predicted Leon Edwards knocking out Usman. And I'm happy to announce I predicted Periera knocking out Adesanya. And I just find it ironic both Nigerian champs have been slain by the fact they were winning their fight. They went into round 5. And they got knocked out. Adesanya, less brutal than Usman, but, you know, the thing is, Adesanya straight away put his hands up and he was like, early stoppage mark. It was not an early stoppage. Adesanya was only going to clinch up and either get an easy victory or something worse was going to happen. He was wobbled. He was clearly going out. And I just think, Joe Rogan said this after the fight, if it was either Joe Rogan or DC, if that fight wasn't stopped, Adesanya would have been in worse condition. He would have taken a knee or something. He would have been out cold. But he was a standing TKO for Periera. Periera slain the beast. We're probably going to get to see this. I was speaking about this earlier. We're probably going to see him run it back because Adesanya's going to want a rematch. But on paper, and he should have won the first fight. But on paper, Periera is 3-0. So do we really want to see him run it back? Yes, but not so soon. I've seen a lot of people say Periera, because he was so easily out-grappled by someone like Adesanya, is going to be an easy matchup for people like Whittaker and Vettori who can get takedowns, but also we'll use Whittaker as an example for Periera. Whittaker's chin isn't all that. I love Whittaker, big Bobby Knuckles, but his chin isn't all that. So one of those Periera shots could easily take out Adesanya. But yeah, the fight, it kind of was your typical Adesanya point fight, but also it wasn't. I certainly didn't feel it was that way. And let's talk about the walkouts. Periera walking out to those war drums, Adesanya walking out to the saw theme, which is a bit ironic now. That was intense. My chest was pounding when I got in the cage. I don't think I ever felt something like that for a title fight, maybe since Stipe vs Ngannou too. But it didn't feel like a typical Adesanya fight. But of course now we've got Periera as champ. Adesanya probably wants to jump straight back in. I don't know how much time he'll have off because it was a standing TKO, but it wasn't, you know, he seemed fine straight away after. So maybe he can jump in February in Australia if the both of them want it. But that's a stacked card because obviously we had Emmett versus, I was about to say Keita Emmett versus Rodriguez announced straight away. But who knows? Great card, new middleweight champion. Both titles changing hands because, of course, we got a new strawweight champion in Zhang Welli. But what a fight card! I said it top 280. It did top 280. Is it going to top 282? We'll find out soon. But what a fight card! New middleweight champion. I'm loving life. Hope you've enjoyed. Protect yourself at all times. I'll see you in the next one.